Hello everyone! Welcome back to another one of John's never-ending list of random things to do. If you remember on a previous video, we installed a double-din radio in a 1985 Toyota Celica Supra. We added accessories such as USB, a microphone, and a video bypass, but we did not install a reverse camera. So let's work on installing that today. In the previous video, these are the trims that you had to remove. If you didn't reinstall them, that's great. But if you reinstalled them, go ahead and remove them again. So we will be starting at the rear panel. Go ahead and remove this panel here, and remove these screws. On the other side, go ahead and remove this panel here, and then remove the two last screws. Now this rear panel is ready to come out. Just push it away from the body and lift it up. Now let's focus on removing this panel. I'm gonna start by removing this screw down here since it's hidden and is very easy to miss. Now you want to remove this cover. Press the button on top and remove it. Once that has been removed, you can remove these three screws. You'll want to remove these screws here as well. Now the speaker grill can be removed. Now this panel can be removed. Grip both ends and just pull it up. Up next is the armrest. Just grip it and pull it up. Now set your focus to remove this trim. Simply remove this screw right here. Once the screw has been removed, grip the trim like so and pull it off. To pull off this panel, put your fingers in here and just pull. Now work your way from the bottom, release this corner from here, and just pull the panel up and out of the way. This here is the last trim you'll want to remove. Go ahead and remove all four of these screws. To remove the trim, just pull it off. Alright, with all the trims out of the way, we can work on installing the reverse camera. I believe this is one of the two locations that lights up your license plate. Now you can choose to remove your taillight and cut a small notch to feed your wire through. That way it doesn't pinch your wire. Or you can just drill a hole through this panel. I went with option 2, drilling a hole through the panel. I started with the center tap, followed up with a pilot hole, and drilled to size with a step bit. To prevent the exposed metal from rusting, I applied some touch-up paint. Once it was cured, I applied a rubber grommet. And going a step further, I applied silicone inside the groove of the rubber grommet. And this is how it looks like installed. I'm just going to let it settle overnight and let it dry. If you want it to, you can set your focus on routing the cable from the rear to the front while waiting for the silicone to dry. Now it's time to mount the reverse camera. I just loosely mounted it in its location and fed the wire through the grommet. It is important that you leave yourself enough slack in the wire so when installing your license plate, you have some flexibility. I then proceeded to tape this wire right here and this wire in here, so it doesn't really move while I'm trying to fill this hole with silicone. Once you've filled the entire hole, do your best to spread the silicone around and apply it to areas that you missed, or just smoothen it to your liking. And once it has dried, you can reinstall your rear license plate. Here's a quick glance of how it looks installed. Now that the camera's installed, we have to find our reverse cable. So I'm just going to probe this wire right here. And my test light lit up, so this is the cable we're looking for. If you don't have a probe or any instrument, all you have to do is pull off this panel, and if you see this red wire right here, just follow it to the other side, and you'll see it connects to this white wire with the blue stripe. Now that you know which wire to tap into, here's a quick schematic of what I did. Now let's look at the actual wires. I ran it along here and all the way down here. Here's the video and power cable connections for the camera. This is the location where I tapped into the reverse cable. And this is the location for the ground. The remainder of the cable just wrapped around this corner here, and I just followed these cables to the front of the vehicle. This is the path that I've sent the wire through. Now you'll just want to shove it into this location, and if you pull this trim up just a bit, you'll be able to pull the cable through. Now you'll want to feed the wire underneath this carpet, and you may have some clips that you have to pull off. Once you have done so, just put the wire through and all the way to the front. From here, just put your wire into this crack, and if you look from on top, it just goes right in. Go ahead and grip the wire and pull as much as you need for your installation. I ended up routing the cable along with the rest of the harness to the radio. Here's a quick look at a schematic of the connections you should be making at the radio. You'll know which one is the reverse trigger because it should have a tag that says reverse trigger. You'll want to make this connection here. And with that connection made, go ahead and plug your video feed here and plug in the connection to the radio. Now in order for this to work, you'll have to go to your settings. Under camera polarity, you have to set it to battery. Once that setting has been set, go ahead and pop it into reverse and hope everything works. And would you look at that, it's working. Alright. Here's a quick glance of how much milliamps the camera draws. If you're happy with this setup and that's all that you want, go ahead and put the panels back into place, starting with this one right here. Slide it back into its proper location and screw it down. Follow that up by installing the rear panel right here. Slide it back into its location, and you want to make sure the hook goes through this hole right here. On each side of the panel, you'll see these tabs right here. You'll have to slide them into the slot. Once you have done so, reinstall the screws and these panels. Something that can be easily be missed. Pull the weather strip over the trim and slide this cover back into place. Now you can install this panel right here. Slide the back end first and then move the trim on the seatbelt out of the way. Once it's been aligned, go ahead and tap it back into place. You can go ahead and reinstall your armrest too. Now go ahead and align this piece and tap it back into place, then screw it in. Now working on to the back, go ahead and screw this piece in. Once you have done so, put the speaker grill on, pop the retainers in, and screw it down. Now would be a good time to reinstall the kick panel. After you have done so, you can install this trim here on the side. Place it into location, align it with the mounting hose, and screw it down. Now if your main goal was to just install the reverse cam, go ahead and proceed to install the glove box and the rest of the center console, such as the radio trims and the climate control. But I'm going to add one extra feature. I'll install a forward-facing camera. I mean, why not? Now originally I wanted to install it inside the grill, but with the dimension of the camera, that meant I had to cut out one honeycomb. But I wasn't prepared to do that, so I removed the lower bracket underneath the bumper and installed it right here. I also ended up fixing a license plate bracket as well. So I'm just going to reinstall this bracket, and this is how it looks like with the camera installed. I also went on ahead and sprayed the camera and a portion of the cable to match the color of my car. In order to protect the lens from oncoming debris, I'll be using a screen protector. I just cut it down to size and fit it over the lens. When you go back to install your license plate with the original mounting point, the license plate will be right up against the camera. A quick fix for this was to offset the mounting point on the license plates. And now when we install the license plate, it doesn't hit the camera. Alright, so now that the camera is installed, let's have a look at a schematic I drew. Notice how this says schematic 1. For this schematic, the forward-facing camera is dependent on the remote wire of the radio. So the camera is only turned on when the radio is turned on. If you're looking to keep your forward-facing camera on when the key is on the accessories position, you want to go with schematic 2, which is connected to the red accessories cable. So transferring the schematics over, you should end up with something like this. And for your diodes, you want to make sure the silver band is connected to the positive side and the other side is connected to the negative. For my installation, I will be going with schematic 2. As the end user, you choose what's best for you. So now that the relays have been set up, let's work on passing the wire to the front. Starting here at the windshield washer reservoir, you want to remove this. Once you have done so, unplug these two connections and move the container out of the way. Now if you look down in this area, you'll see this grommet. We'll be using it as a passageway for our cable to go through. To fit it through, we're going to use a coat hanger. Tape your cable onto the coat hanger and feed it through the grommet. Going back inside, this is the area behind the glove box. If you look closely, you'll see that our cable has reached the inside. go ahead and grab it and pull it through. Now would also be a good time to undo the tape. Proceed to pull the cable through, but remember to leave yourself enough cable in the front of the vehicle to reach the camera. Going back out to the front, the coat hanger can now be removed. And now you can route your cable to the camera. I ended up routing this underneath the bracket here, around this tower here, and underneath the air filter. To remove the air filter, lift this lever here, then pull this entire piece up. Great! Now just continue routing your cable to the front. I routed it underneath this little crack here, then through this little crack in front of the radiator, and just ran it all along the front to the camera. I also went back and cleaned it up, so you can't even tell I put any wires in here. It looks original. Here we have a quick schematic of our wiring configuration for the front camera. Since the video and the signal from the radio has already been routed to the front, all there is left to do is route the power cable from the battery. So you want to make that connection right here. And this is where I routed the cable to the camera. So let's have a look at the route. I went down here and all along the front of the radiator. I'll have to go back and clean this up. And I passed it through the front with the rest of the cable. You'll see here is where I made all my connection. And look, here's our diode. Remember to connect the side with the silver band to the positive end and connect the other end to the negative. This is where I placed my relay. Now it is safe to install the 2-amp fuse. The air filter and its housing can now be reinstalled. Place it into its location and lock it into place. The windshield washer reservoir can now be installed as well. Make these connections and reinstall the reservoir. Going back inside, I sent the video cable down here and pulled the rest of the remaining cable. Then I went back to this area to clean up the cable. Now all you have to do is loop up this cable here and zip tie it. Once you've connected everything, you should end up with something like this, a huge mess. So now you're left with 2 video feeds. How are we going to configure this? Well, let's find out. For option 1, you can have your rear camera connected here and your front camera connected here. From here, you have to go to System and Enable AV. The reason why I didn't go with this setup is because once you go into AV, you cannot listen to the radio or your songs. You have to listen to whatever is plugged into AV. In this case, it's just a camera with no audio input. So going with option 2. All I did was, I put both of the video feed on a Y connector. To be honest, I didn't think it would work, but I gave it a shot anyway. After I made the connections, I made sure to tape it up so it doesn't get loose or get disconnected. Now it's time to plug everything back in, starting with the microphone, the 2 video feeds, the radio connection, the USB, and the antenna. Now it's time for a quick test. Remember to put your camera polarity on battery. If you went with schematic 1, your forward-facing camera will only turn on when the radio is on. Notice how this says source off, which means the radio is off. If you toggle this here to enable your camera, you will not see the forward-facing camera. So let's turn on the radio. So now if you toggle the rear view off then back on, the forward-facing camera should work. If your forward-facing camera is crooked, now would be a good time to straighten it out. All you have to do is have somebody sit inside while you go to the front and adjust it left or right. If you went with schematic 2, as long as your key is in the accessories position, even if the source is off, when you go to rear view, the forward-facing camera should work. Now for both schematic 1 and schematic 2, when you go into reverse and go back into neutral, there is an 8-second delay before the forward-facing camera displays on the screen. A quick fix for this is to go into your settings and turn camera polarity off. Now let's give it a try again. So toggling rear view off, then back on, going into reverse, and going back to neutral. Alright, that's immediate. Now if you turn camera polarity off, you lose the feature where if you put it into reverse, it automatically toggles to the rear view camera. So what that means is, every time you go into reverse or you're trying to park, you'll have to toggle rear view every single time. Or if you want it to, you can leave rear view on at all times. An issue with leaving rear view on at all times is if you're trying to watch a movie, the camera takes priority. So whenever you're trying to watch a movie, you have to disable rear view. As the end user, you choose what's best for you. Another issue you might run into is the image might be reversed, or you simply don't want these lines, or you need the lines. All you have to do is go to the camera and you'll see these two small wires. One is white and one is green. All you have to do is cut them off. You might want to refer to the manual that came with your camera. Now going back inside, if we look at the forward-facing camera, the curb is now on the right side and the lines are gone. Going into reverse, the curb is now on the right side and the lines are now visible. Now with the reverse camera and the relay, this is now how much milliamps is being drawn from the reverse lights. So that concludes it for this installation. Go ahead and reinstall the trims and the glove box. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did and you liked it, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed yet, maybe even consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys for the next random project.